Hi, this is Keith Schneider. I'm CEO of MarketGauge.com, and I'm filling in for Mish. And today we're going to cover a new indicator called leadership. So this indicator is extremely powerful, and one of the things that we really want to highlight is pros look at the market differently than average retail investors. They look for trends that have their own momentum over and above what the general market is doing. That's why we call this indicator leadership. Now, you're going to hear these trends described as leading stocks or sectors. And here's the thing. Leaders tend to continue to outperform for long periods of time, measured correctly. And in terms of leadership, here's some interesting stats. 70% or more of a stock's move is from following the overall market. If you're not trading a leader, then you can get whipped around by the market as well, very easily. Now, the other thing, if you're trading a leader, you can buy dips confidently because they get pulled down by the market, but they recover faster and bigger. And with our indicator, that becomes really obvious. So leaders have the best move after a market sell-off. Now, there are three forces that impact trends. The most important one, in our opinion, is leadership. So the three forces that impact trends, one key one is that sophisticated traders follow the stocks that lead the trends in the market. So here's Jeffrey Grunlock. He runs probably, I don't know, $50 to $100 billion, maybe even more now, as a hedge fund and ETF manager. And one of the things that he found during this period of time, back in 2018 period, was the last straw before there was this big sell-off is they took down leaders like Amazon. I'm going to show you exactly what he saw through our lens of our leadership indicator. And so here's a couple other things to know. People use 52-week highs to find leaders. And it works pretty good after market declines. But it's not that easy to use in a general bull market and is often late. And by the time you get in, most of the move has happened. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you just want to be limited to buying new highs? So ranking systems are cumbersome. So Investors Business Daily actually has one. Value Line has another one. But it's not easy. It's a lot of work to compile lists of top-ranked stocks and then trade them. And you're not going to see the trend of the ranking. With our indicators, you will. So here, the mystery is solved with MarketGauge's proprietary leadership indicator. Okay, so here's how it works. We measure both price action, price, and volume on a relative basis, right? So regarding the price leadership, we look at it relative to the market. This shows you alpha. We also then measure it relative to itself. So we look at the underlying price chart, and we do it over 3 time frames. So when we look at this relative price action, we're looking at today's value, which in the ACP will be the blue line. We look at it short term, which is over a red line, or the red line looks at the short-term relative price movement, and then longer term over the black. Now, separately, underneath the price leadership chart, we have another chart that just looks at volume. That calculates volume as bullish or bearish. And again, there are two time frames again. So today's value is the blue line, and the short-term value is the red line. And black is always the longer-term value. So take a look at this particular chart in Tesla. What's interesting is you can see here, right, that the blue line here over the red line is bullish for the short to intermediate term trend, right? So, you know, there are a number of points here where you can see, right, there is penetration, right, of this blue over the red. And when that occurred, it was the start of a really big move. Now, the red line over the black is a longer term bullish confirmation. So one of the things you can see, look at this leadership chart right here. One thing you can see is that this red, right, which is the short-term average of the relative performance of Tesla, right, versus the S&P. In this case, that's what we have it set to as our benchmark. And look, this black line here, right, is the longer-term relationship. And as you can see, long-term is in gear, and every time we reassert here and move above this red line up here with the blue, you get a really big move and a large breakout. And this chart, right, is looking back to October of, this actually goes back, believe it or not, to October of 2014. So that's just this particular chart here. Okay, now, again, one thing I want to reaffirm here is that the red line over the black, right, when the short-term leadership is over the longer-term leadership, that's telling you even the trend is even stronger, right? So this is pretty straightforward and easy to see. Okay, so let's take a look at some more charts. One thing you can see here, this is a chart of Bank of America. When this occurred is not important, but one of the things that you can see here, and in this case, with this chart, we're just looking at the price leadership. We're not showing the volume. But as you can see, right around here, in this section here, we started moving, right? The blue line started moving above the red. And that was telling you that the price leadership was improving on a short-term basis. Now, when it moved, the actual underlying price bumped above the longer-term moving average here, or the 50-day moving average, and then, of course, this 200-day, this affirmed the signal on the leadership chart, right? So we use the price chart in conjunction with the leadership chart as well. So that when the price moves above key levels, and this is in gear, that's telling you the odds are going to be much improved in terms of having a successful trade and continuation of a trend turnaround, or if the trend is existing, the opportunity to re-enter. So one thing you can see, you had sort of a pause here, right? And the market did sell off. And now when this started, the performance of this particular stock, Bank of America, started to improve. It was not only moving above its short-term relative measurement, but its longer-term, everything was in gear. And look, the market really exploded after that. Okay, another great example. This is using an ETF. One of the things that's really clear here is take a look. This is a long-term underperformance, and right over here for the first time, you've got evidence of new leadership. And you know what? We really didn't break out from all of this pattern, but we did start trading above this 50-day moving average. And when that occurs, right, you get this leadership movement here and a confirmation above a key moving average. That's your entry point. And as you can see, the market took off after that as well. So this is great for confirming price action using the leadership indicator that is now available on StockCharts. Okay, the next chart here is we're taking a look at XRT, yet another example. Now this one is interesting because it took place this year. Now one of the things you can certainly see is, right, this leadership gauge here, we started breaking out above this moving average. And of course, what it did, it allowed you to know that anytime that you're going to get any improvement, it likely was going to continue. Then a couple of weeks later, look what happens. We start breaking out on leadership above the black, which is the longer term, and that really qualifies for adding on to a position or initiating a new one if you didn't take advantage of this. And of course, once we broke out above the 200-day moving average, you can see we have been in gear. Okay, here's another interesting example of using pure leadership, and it gave you some really interesting clues. Sometimes the trades are good for longer-term trades and big moves, and sometimes a bit shorter. But one thing you can see here is we started breaking out above all of the key levels on our leadership, and that led to an interesting pop short term. Market came off. If you had some decent risk management, we could have taken advantage of this. And of course, the bigger trend here, as you can see, big moves here. What telegraphed it well ahead of time, and validated the fact that this was going to occur, was the breakout above these key levels here. You can see the blue now above the red and the black, and guess what? Explosive move once we got above that key moving average. Okay, now remember the chart, or remember the slide that I showed you with Grunlock looking at Amazon. So I'm picking up from there. So when Grunlock was saying, I'm seeing this weakness in Amazon, let's take a look at what our indicators showed us. What's interesting is certainly you can see here, right? You can see the fact is that the leadership really started breaking down, right? We broke down under this, under the red here, the blue under the red, right? So on a shorter term basis, we broke down here, but also on top of that, look, you can see that Amazon actually made a high, right, back in September. It actually virtually matched a new high, and yet there was a tremendous divergence on our leadership. So when we started failing the swing low, that was also a really good indication that we were going to get this nasty sell-off. So you can see here how using this indicator can give you a lead as to buy opportunities or sell opportunities. And in this case, as Grunlock had seen, the momentum was already shifting, and we picked that up with our leadership gauge. And there was a clear divergence. Okay, so the other thing to note is, and another key part of the indicator, is the correct use of volume can also improve the percentage of your winning trades, and used in conjunction with the leadership chart, you put those two together and you have a really good way of analyzing and reading the market well ahead of most other players. Okay, so the most important thing about volume is trend. And one thing about volume, it's very spotty. So it's really hard to use and figure out bar by bar. So what we like to do is always use volume as a confirmation, not the trigger, right? The confirmation is from the leadership chart, the underlying price chart, confirming what we're seeing on leadership, and then ultimately using volume as a final confirmation. And again, the other thing to note is that volume often precedes price. So here's a chart. If you take a look here, right, if you just look at volume normally, it's very, very tough to understand and read. And also with the all the hidden and dark pools and high frequency trading, basically hiding a lot of the volume that's really driving the market. Sometimes it's not easy to use. So, I mean, here's a perfect example, moving above and underneath this overall steady incline in volume. And that's what we like to look at. If you take a look at the difference here, you can see I can't get any sense of what all this means here. However, when I look at this chart, I can see that overall, right, I do get some peaks and some valleys here, but the trend overall is moving up. Now, finally, I put price and volume together, and if you take a look at this, look at GDX here, right? What's going on? We're breaking out on both the leadership chart, right? You can see we break out here. What's interesting, it's telling you that when we break out above this green line and the blue line, which is the two key moving averages, we're already ahead in terms of leadership. So in this case, GDX moving up, outperforming the market, right? Because you can see we moved above the red, we moved above the black, and the price is actually confirming as well with a move above the 50-day moving average and then the 200. Now, in this particular case, we also have a situation where volume is confirming as well. Okay, let's take a look at another picture here. So what's interesting now is taking a look at this chart. This is a stock that's been really pretty beat up. But look, for the first time, right, you can see that in a long time that the volume, leadership is really showing here. We got a breakout above the 50-day moving average. So in this particular case, when you get the breakout above these key moving averages, that's your cue and your reference point to get in when this leadership is showing. Because remember, we said we're using the indicators to help us determine what the new trend is or what the existing trend is, and use price for the actual execution and risk management and entering here. So in this case, we had a nice pop above these key moving averages and got in. And again, here, everything is in gear. Now, it works in reverse as well. So one of the things you can see here is, look, in terms of the leadership, look how we're starting to break down, right? You can see the short term, this red line here, starting to lose momentum and actually turn down. And we're also trading underneath, right, the red line, which is the short term moving average of the leadership, and we're trading under it. Now, while that's happening, we actually try to make a new high and can't. And look what happens here. We're really starting to fail. And in fact, the red, the short term of leadership, failing the longer term. And of course, we get the bigger sell-off. And in this case, you can see down here, volume is also failing, and the market clearly moves lower on this particular chart, which is Pfizer. Okay, and then finally, last chart here, take a look at is IBM. Now this is a while ago. So one of the things that you want to definitely take a look at is how this concept of understanding the relationship and using this indicator is that in this particular case, IBM had been on a long-term weakness relative to the S&P. And you can see once we also flip negative on the shorter term, you got a much nastier sell-off. And you can also see how volume, once that blue line moved against the red line, that the volume was showing some weakness there as well, confirming the breakdown under this green, which is the 200-day moving average. And of course, the market continued to deteriorate. All right, hope this helps. Of course, this is now another indicator, the leadership indicator, along with our real motion, which only measures pure momentum. You put all of these together, and you have a very interesting way of looking at charts with an insight that is hard to get elsewhere. All right, hope this all helps. And again, good luck with your trading.
Thank you so much, Keith, for that wonderful tutorial. So now back to me, Mish, and I just want to show you guys how you can purchase and access the ACP plugin. So first, if you go to the home screen on StockCharts and then go to StockCharts ACP, you'll see a chart will come up. Then if you go all the way here to the bottom right and hit See All Plugins, scroll down, here we are. All you have to do is hit the button for See More on the ACP plugin. And in my case, of course, you see it's installed. In your case, it will give you some information, a video you can watch, a little bit of information, and then all you have to do is hit the Buy button. Okay, so that's it for now. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks so much.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.